Hey guys, what's up? We are back with another video today, and today we are doing a Green Bay Packers draft grades video. I am here with Lincoln. How are we doing today? And are you ready to talk about your Green Bay Packers?
Doing pretty good, and so I've already done my draft grade video for them. I'm interested to, collab and figure out what we want to do with the draft grades now. And I think it'll be pretty fun. Get your take too on what you think of the picks and stuff that they went with. So you want to start us, or you want me to?
So I'll start with my draft grades here. So Lukas Van Ness went 13 overall. Obviously, you had the trade with the Jets that moved you up 2 picks. This, I think, was an interesting pick on my end. I was looking for more of a Jackson Smith and Jigba if I was a Green Bay Packers fan. But Lukas Van Ness, not a bad player. Probably going to play as an outside edge rusher opposite of Rashawn Gary.
Yeah, so I see you gave him a B. I gave that one an A-. I like the pick of Lukas Van Ness a lot. I think he's a Green Bay type of player, and we know he can play in the cold weather because that's one of the things that gets overlooked a lot about Green Bay is do guys want to not necessarily play in the cold weather, but do they want to stay in that sort of environment? And with Van Ness going to Iowa, he's used to that, and so I like the pick a lot. I think, like you said, he's probably going to line up across from Rashawn Gary. And I think he's a guy that can really help build the defensive lineup because Rashawn Gary was taken, I think, 13th overall himself. It was somewhere right around in that range between like 11 and 15 a few years ago. And, I definitely would like to see somebody else go across from him to really help build that D line up and really help to get some more pressure on the quarterback, because that's something that was very lacking from the Packers last year as far as, consistently getting after the passer.
So, like I said, I gave him a B for this grade, mostly because I think that edge rusher was a position of need, but I thought that Lukas Van Ness was not exactly my favorite. I think that he's a little bit boomer bust. He obviously hasn't had too many snaps because of not being a starter at Iowa, though he had a lot more snaps than other players. I think he is a little bit unrefined, so taking him at 13 was a little bit of a risky proposition. So that's also another reason for having him as a B. So with Lucas Musgrave, second-round pick, number 42 overall, you did trade back with this pick. That was the trade with the Lions, in which the Lions took Brian Branch, and that's the main issue of having this as a B- pick. I like Lucas Musgrave as a tight end prospect. As a pass catcher, he's a great pass catcher. Blocker, not so much, but I think a great pass catcher, though I do see some issues in not taking Brian Branch with that pick earlier at 39. I think that Brian Branch would have been a much better selection in order to have a guy opposite of Darnell Savage.
Yep, and that's exactly – I think Brian Branch actually went with the Lions' second round pick, I think at 45. So I think he was even still available right here.
Yeah.
And that's what I talked about in my videos. I like Luke Musgrave, the player. I don't like Luke Musgrave, the pick, because Brian Branch was available. I don't remember which one. He was either available whenever you traded back or whenever you made this selection. And I think that tight end was not as big of a need as getting Brian Branch at safety, especially whenever you see later on that the Packers take Tucker Kraft. I know they're two completely different style tight ends, but, the player Luke Musgrave, I like him a lot. I think he's a good route runner. Like you said, he's not the best blocking. I think he's probably one of the quicker tight ends in this draft. And so I think he provides a big body target, and I think he's going to be very good for the Packers. And I think that he fits what they're trying to go to with the offense, run some 12 personnel, and I think that's why they went with Musgrave and Kraft a little bit later on.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was the big reason for taking a tight end like Musgrave. It's not for him to play tight end, but him to play more of a big kind of Z receiver, if that.
Yeah.
So talking about wide receivers, at pick 50, the Packers took Jaden Reed, the wide receiver out of Michigan State. The only reason for this being a C+ and not being a higher grade is mostly I thought it was a little bit too early. This is where I would have traded back even further. Obviously, you don't always have the benefit of being able to trade back, but I think Reed is a good player, but I had him as an early third-round grade. I just thought middle of the second round was a little bit too early for me. Though, like I said, I like the player, but just not the selection at where he was at.
Yeah, I like Jaden Reed a lot. I think he brings a lot to the table as an outside receiver. And just you add another big, fast receiver to the young group of receivers that you have right now with Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, and some other guys taken later in the draft. But I like Jaden Reed. I think he was I had him around where you did, late second, early third. But then whenever I was watching the draft live, everybody else acted like this is right where he should have gone. So I didn't get to look into the prospects as much as they did, obviously, because that's their full-time job. So I would say I think it's a very good pick with him going there, and everybody seemed to say that's where he should have gone.
So heading on to the next selections, we go third round, pick 78. The Packers selected Tucker Kraft, the tight end out of South Dakota State. Sorry there. Kraft, really, here's the one thing that a lot of people are like, why are the Packers selecting two tight ends in the first 3 rounds? Well, here's the thing that you got to realize. Kraft is much more of an inline, big body tight end that can also go out and catch. Musgrave is much more of a pass catching tight end, a much more
he's more like a Travis Kelce type player.
Yeah, a Mike Gesicki, stuff like that, where he's going to only go catch the ball as a Musgrave. But Tucker Kraft is going to be more of an inline tight end, more of the Mercedes Lewis replacement. So I gave Kraft a B as a pick.
Yeah, I like the pick of Kraft a lot. I think that he is a very good tight end. And like you said, not only can he block, he can go out and receive the football. He's a little bit bigger and a little bit slower than Musgrave is. But, he's one of those hard-nosed tight ends, and I think that fits the Packers' culture, or at least I don't really know what their culture really is, but it fits what you would think whenever you think, all right, they're playing in the snow. Like, this just seems like the kind of guy that's going to go play in Lambeau. And
you can even see the snow in the background of his picture there.
Yeah, yeah. And so I like the pick of Kraft. And if they are wanting to run some 12 personnel, I think Kraft is a great tight end to have, especially when you throw in to me, the player comparison who's on the Packers right now, I think he compares with is Josiah DeGuara, just a little bit better of a receiver, and he's just a better player. He can catch the ball better. They're about the same blocking, but I think his receiving threat is what led them to take this pick over instead of just keeping DeGuara.
So heading on to pick 116 in round 4, the Packers selected Kobe Wooden, the defensive lineman out of Auburn. Had this pick as a B, not the flashiest of picks, definitely a solid player, good to be able to play both as a 3 technique and as an outside edge rusher. Did not really have any issues with this pick. Definitely not the flashiest pick, but also not a bad pick either. Lincoln, what are your thoughts on this pick going into round 4?
Oh, yeah, I love this pick right here of Colby Wooden. I think that he is going to be, I think the defensive line is going to be Devontae Wyatt, Kenny Clark, and Colby Wooden. I think Colby Wooden's going to be kind of that guy that is a rotational piece for the first year or two, but after that, I think he's going to be on the D-line as a starter, and I think he's going to be solid for him. So, yeah, I think a B+ is a fair grade for him.
Yeah, so this is probably the pick that will probably have the biggest grade differential on. But with pick number 149, the Packers selected Sean Clifford, the quarterback out of Penn State. I have an F on this pick. I really just don't think that Sean Clifford is going to be a very good quarterback in the NFL. And to be honest, I think in about 2 years, he'll be off the Packers roster. So I just really don't see the value in picking him here. I thought that there were other quarterbacks that were available that may have just been better talent-wise or at least better projects. Sean Clifford isn't as much of a project, but he has no ceiling whatsoever as an NFL starter.
I look at Clifford as I would say it's probably a B for me. to get another guy in behind Jordan Love. You get a guy who is very experienced. He's kind of like Brock Purdy to a degree, and he can move around. Definitely like Brock Purdy when it comes to experience and stuff.
Yeah.
But he's pretty mobile. He's pretty accurate. Has a good arm, and he's also got the body build for NFL quarterback. He's like 6'2", 215, something like that. So I like the pick of Clifford to back Jordan Love up, and I think that he will be one of those guys that hangs around in the NFL as a backup QB for most of their career.
It's definitely possible, but I'm just not a big fan of Clifford as a QB.
I don't remember, was Haener available?
Haener was available.
I think he was available.
He didn't go till the 6th round. So
I'm trying to remember. I think he might have went early 5th round, though.
I can look it up.
I can't quite remember where he went, where it was at.
But I'll head on to the next pick as you look that up. So at pick number 159, you can see what grade I have there. But the Packers selected Dontavius Wicks, the Virginia wide receiver. Really like his build. Definitely is a project. And that's kind of why I give it a B and nothing higher, is because I like him as a value. I think that he's at a good spot, has potential, but is definitely a project type of player. So he is definitely a solid B.
I looked it up. Haener got drafted in the 4th round, 127 overall by the Saints.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, he went a lot higher. I didn't think he went that high, but I thought he might have already been gone. But, yeah, the pick with Wicks, I like him. He's a big, fast receiver. I think to throw him into this young receivers, you get a bunch of young, talented receivers. And the thing that I think benefits him the most is he's probably going to be 4th or 5th on the depth chart behind a bunch of guys. So he will really be able to, just develop back there. And the Packers have done a pretty good job of drafting receivers in rounds 2 through 5 and really developing them. And so I think Wicks, very talented, got a lot of upside, just kind of a raw prospect. And I think that, give him a year or two, and he's going to be a solid number 2, number 3 receiver for the Packers.
Heading on to the 6th round, pick 179, the Packers select Carl Brooks, the defensive lineman out of Bowling Green. Personally, I like Carl Brooks a little bit better than who was the other guy? Kobe Wooden. I think that Brooks has a little bit higher of a ceiling. I think that potential-wise, he's a great pass rusher. But also, if he could tack on a little bit of weight, I definitely think he could add to that ability there. So, Carl Brooks, I'm going to give him a A+ grade.
Yeah, I think that's a fair grade, especially whenever you got him. I like Kobe Wooden a little bit better than Carl Brooks, but also just with the size differential between the two, I think helps when you look at the NFL. So Brooks will definitely need to get a little bit more muscle on him, but he's a great player, was at Bowling Green, and I think he's going to have a solid NFL career. And I think he could get some good amount of playing time this year, be a kind of a rotational piece like I talked about with Kobe Wooden.
Yeah. Moving on to the next pick, not much to say here, but Anders Carlson, the kicker out of Auburn at pick 207. He doesn't have the strongest leg in the world, but does have some good accuracy to him. Any thoughts on this pick? I really don't have much to say about a kicker.
He's kind of like Mason Crosby to me. Not the strongest leg in the world, but very accurate. He did hit a 62-yard field goal in a scrimmage, in an Auburn scrimmage. The longest he ever hit in an actual game was 53. Which when he gets into the NFL weight room and all that stuff, I'm sure he'll be able to add a few yards onto that long. And I didn't watch the kick. I'm sure he can hit farther than 53 if he's being drafted. So I like it because Crosby's getting old and you need a guy to come in and replace him.
Yeah. So heading on to the last couple of picks, we'll go through these real quickly. Lou Nichols, 7th round pick, 235. Thought he was a solid player, gave him a B+. Had a great junior season and really fell off this past season, but solid pickup to be kind of an RB3, RB4.
Yeah, solid pickup, pretty good upside for him, and a guy that will come in at a position where depth is needed. So I like that pick.
At pick number 232, the Packers selected Carrington Valentine, the cornerback out of Kentucky. Don't have much to say about him here. Definitely not one of the guys that I looked at a lot, but Valentine does have some ability to play at that nickel position and to play outside. Any thoughts on this pick?
Yeah, I like him as a depth piece at the nickel position. I think that's where he'll probably end up whenever he does get to play, is probably at the nickel position. And so I like Carrington Valentine bringing some depth into the secondary.
So with Andrew Johnson Jr., 242, the safety out of Iowa State, gave him a B as well. Just kind of a mediocre pick, not anything too special here. Not really upset about this pick. I don't think that it was particularly bad. It added to safety depth, which I thought was important. Just thought you would get a safety a little bit earlier.
Yeah, would have liked to have seen him get a guy like we already talked about, Brian Branch earlier on, maybe a guy like Jamie Robinson. But, to get Anthony Johnson, we still needed depth at the safety position, so that adds another body to the depth chart, and that could play a key role if some guys get injured.
Finally, at pick 256, wide receiver out of Charlotte, Grant Dubose. Anything to say about here? I thought he was a solid wide receiver at Charlotte. Not the greatest amount of potential, but not too bad either.
I think he offers you a good amount of potential for a seventh-round wide receiver. I think, throw him in behind some of these other receivers, just give him a chance to practice and develop, and I think maybe he turns into something. He's got a decent amount of talent, but we'll see what happens with him. But I do think it was a good pickup depth-wise for the Packers.
So that's going to wrap up today's video here. Make sure that you check out the channels, hit the subscribe button as we are closing in on our subscriber goals. That's all for this time. Till we see each other next time.